think that when I joined the inquiry group, it was kind of from a selfish standpoint in the fact that I felt like in my credential program, I was taught all of these things about English and how to have kids access the reading that was helpful if they were at grade level. But since I was going to teach 6th to 12th grade, then when I started teaching, a lot of students are reading below grade level, and I didn't know how to teach them how to read because I just didn't have that background. And so I joined this to start thinking about all of the steps that came before what students should be at 7th grade, because I don't know about phonics, I don't know about syllabication. All of that is something that I needed to educate myself on. And so I'm using this as an opportunity to think about whatever steps my students missed before they got to me and how I can fill that in.
Back in September, October, when our principal, Ms. Rebel, encouraged us to join the team, I was probably one of the most hesitant. But she encouraged me, and in the end, I'm definitely glad I did it. I feel like even when there are days that they're an inquiry team and I'm tired and drained and we all kind of come in and Mark will give us our time to like spill it all out. Oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm so tired. But then once we start the work and once we finish the work, I always feel like I've accomplished something. I always feel like I finally had the time to do the stuff that I'm supposed to do, to look at students and talk about learning and modify my teaching. I now know where to go. My first kids that I go to when I'm walking around the room and circulating are these focal students. And a lot of times it was the kids that were the quiet ones and that the ones that I didn't get to, or the ones that were behavior problems and the ones that would get sent out in 10 minutes because they didn't understand the work. So I've noticed that I have it in my head and going to them first and focusing on them more, that it's improved my interaction with them and I think my teaching also.
It starts with having taught Read 180 and just recognizing, how important reading is, just how that makes, in my mind, just all the difference on the English side. You guys got your math. And then, recognizing how important it was, recognizing how many kids need it besides those 18 kids. And also, I feel like as teachers, there's so many things we want to do. And that we want to go deep with, but that I know for myself I don't, because I don't really have the space and time and opportunity and guidance to do so, and so this was an opportunity to actually do that.
From a more whole school or leadership perspective, I think that I come from the same place that Mara and Kelly come from, which is I'm a secondary English teacher. I taught high school, and so you definitely had that experience where there are a lot of kids who are reading below grade level. And one, we don't know how to really accurately identify why or what's going on with their reading, and secondly, what to do about it. And so I was excited for the opportunity to put, instead of just being frustrated by that fact, but to have some real tools to get in, figure out what was going on with those kids, and some things to do about it. And I think that's one of the most exciting things. I really like the focal student approach. For many of the reasons that these guys have talked about, I do think that it's important that you choose students that represent patterns that you see in your classroom. So you can both look at what is this particular kid doing, and then take those lessons and apply them to the rest of other students that can work for, or other whether or not you should do something in the whole class or individually. There's you can apply those lessons to the bigger group, and it's actually something that we an approach that we took on for our February 1st PD day when we were looking at student work of the students. In terms of my learning, I think that I'm getting a better sense of what kind of skill building is appropriate to do with the whole class and what kind of skill building needs to be done at an individual level. And in terms of, it just builds the capacity of these teachers. This, as you can see, it's just an amazing group of teachers, and it gives them the opportunity to have these conversations in a really focused way, which I appreciate, because so we've been able to do that, and then they can make decisions by trying things out and sharing that knowledge with each other and really building up their own capacity to be able to do this stuff starting at the beginning of the year next year, identifying what are the needs of kids and then making plans for what they want to do with it.
2 students actually. So I'm just going to say their names, just going to go with it. So one of my students, Jenny, super quiet, and I couldn't ever really figure out what she was understanding, what she wasn't. She's a hard worker and will definitely pass the class, but how is she getting things? So they were doing a sort one day, and I was noticing that Jenny's partner was doing a lot more of the work than she was. So I went over and I stopped and I said, okay, I want Jenny to do this. And as Jenny was like thinking about, telling me what a prefix meant, the partner would kind of jump in. And I was like, no, I just want to know what Jenny's thinking. And as it turned out, because they had been doing partner work, she got it. But the partner had been kind of vocalizing it a lot more, so it was really good to see that even though she wasn't vocalizing it, like she understood it and she could do it. So I had to approach Jenny individually and say, okay, who would you work well with as a partner? And that kind of care for that particular partnership, because it was working, but I didn't realize at the time that it wasn't really working. It was only because she was a focal student that I realized I needed to change it around. And it changed how I was thinking about whether or not she understood things.
I would say it just like kind of going with the excitement thing. Like I've been astounded that prefixes could be so exciting to kids. Like the whole time, they love it. Like they're always raising their hand. Oh my gosh, it's great! I see a prefix. I see a prefix. And so like sometimes I get caught up in like the whole class bit because it is great to see how excited people are. But with a focal student, it's just a consciousness, I guess, and just being conscious to call on them in the moments where I can. The question that's being asked is one that what they say will kind of let me know where they are.
We all were kind of frustrated, like, well, we need to have conversations. What's going on in Jenny's mind? Or why is Justin not reading during silent reading time? We had all these questions, and Mark was like, well, have you talked to the student about this? Have you asked the student about what's going on in their heads? And we're all like, no, when do you have time to do that? So one thing I brought up was the idea of like building structures in the classroom for students to be able to work independently so that we can start working in small groups, so that we can have time to work with this one student. Like I said in my little snippet, we're ready to wrap it up. Like, okay, how much can we spend on prefixes? So I think even though the kids are still excited about it, and we are too, we're ready to say, okay, who's mastered this? And let's move on and start a new cycle and choose our next sub-skill target and stick with these focal students to at least do one more.
We did a lot of data and figured out some syllabication issues with a couple of students, but not all of our focal students. So I think we have to figure out if our focus is going to be syllabication or something else.
And so never before have I actually like really sat down with data. Okay, this is like, I actually see something that's a really big gap, and then actually being able to say, okay, because of this, we need to go EOA,
We get a lot of data, right? We get CST data. We can get that by standard. We get SRI data. All of our kids take the SRI. We get benchmark data, again, you broken down by standard or by question, but we don't get data that's as specific as you get from the kinds of reading assessment, fluency, and other things that we've done with these kids. And you're not going to be able to do that with every single kid, but through this process of narrowing down, we've been able to get some really specific data on a few kids, which has really helped. I think that what Jake Kelly was saying, it's like, you get all this data, what does that mean? So the kid got 323, so what? What does that mean? And this has really been able to say, okay, this is what this data means, and here's what to do next.